So 141, all arises in dependence. To this, or rather this of all the Dharma, is the treasure. To understand and penetrate this well, through wisdom based upon reflection, is the key to all the teachings, all without exception. So Kangyur Rinpoche says, the meaning of the treasury of the scriptures is that all the phenomena of the ground, path, and fruit arise interdependently. And we can investigate and then see how the phenomena of samsara, the phenomena of the path, are all based on causes and conditions. And as such, they exist as what we call dependently arisen phenomena, praticca samutpada. And similarly, also the fruition arises on the basis of us providing the causes and conditions that eliminate what obscures the fruition or the ground nature. So Kangyur Rinpoche says, if from listening to the teachings we gain a clear understanding of this interdependence, and if we are then able to bring together the key points and penetrate them with the wisdom that results from reflection, a wisdom that is uncontaminated by adhering to extreme views, we will have in our possession, so to speak, a key with which to open the door to the scripture's profound meaning. So that's where what we need to bring to this is obviously that we're listening. And that's in any learning process. There's somebody who shows, okay, the Spanish fountain is that way, or the door is that way. Then we actually need to listen, first down that way, then a left, then a right. Now, if we already have some preconceived ideas, no, it says here in my guidebook, Lonely Planet tells me I'm supposed to go a different way. Then, as much as Lonely Planet might be dependable, that's maybe the case, but we might also have a source that's not dependable. And that's where the Buddha is pretty clear that we're never going to attain enlightenment if we come with already our own preconceived ideas. We already have some philosophy. Then we're never going to be open really to hearing and to also penetrate concepts. So that's where we're talking about not being stuck by adhering to extreme views. But if we then understand this key point of interdependence, then we understand that our confusion is workable. The path is workable. The ground nature that is our natural inheritance is something that we can access. And understand this key point really of dependent arising, then we actually know what the path entails. Now, the other day I was looking at something in conjunction with the text that Khinchen Pema Sherab has been talking about and also taught last year. And it's actually from this, it's actually appendix in this book, which is about Mipam Rinpoche's life. But in there's a text which is then known as the lion's roar. Not the lion's roar on extrinsic emptiness, but on more we call the lion's roar on Buddha nature. But in there, Mipam Rinpoche makes a very clear point about what we're talking about here. So I just thought to include this. And he says, ordinary beings, that means people like us, or certainly people like me, are able to cut through their misconceptions by means of study and reflection. And thanks to the three types of valid cognition, they're able to ascertain the points that should be assimilated, meaning on the basis of what we can observe directly, what we can understand through reasoning, and also what we can learn from the Buddha, what he has said, that we then, you could say, accept on the basis of trust. So these three, and that's also what constitutes, you could say, valid cognition in modern science. It is what we can see and verify empirically. It is what we can know through logic. And it is also where we rely on, you could say, a tradition of knowledge. So with that, we can actually cut through our confusion. And Mipam Rinpoche continues, and it is thanks to this that they acquire irreversible conviction. If, on the other hand, they fail to ascertain through valid cognition the truth of their position for themselves, and they are unable to prove to those who contest it, they are like those who, though unsure about the presence of an invisible flesh-eating spirit, proclaim that it is there in front of them. And that, of course, is a little bit sort of a cultural image, but it's essentially if one just is sort of operating with a vague assumption that it's true, then it's as if you sometimes, people say, I have a feeling there's something in here. And of course, in Asian cosmology and everyday life, it's quite common that you talk about spirits being around. That's just how it is. But you might not have the certainty. Somebody who is able to see things can say, well, yes, there is something I know from my own experience. But otherwise, then it's just really sort of like just assuming. It's not really certainty. So such people, they are unable to convince either themselves or anyone else. Therefore, the learned, and we're not talking about professors, but we're just talking about people who think critically. And there's everybody in the modern world, they think, they talk, they have opinions. They talk a lot, have a lot of ideas, and that's the kind of people who then you could say require this. Now, in Tibet, you did have people who actually, you could say, maybe weren't learned, but they had complete trust in the teacher. And the teacher says, okay, meditate like this, they would just do it and it would work beautifully. But I'm sorry to say, a few of us actually have that. We are by culture and most of us by disposition inclined to actually question and reflect. And that's where this category of learned actually lands on any one of us in the modern context. And such people, it says here, should adopt a procedure of speaking in a way that accords with reason. And that's where it doesn't help that we just say, well, that's just how it is. Because, in the name of freedom of religion, I choose to believe this, that's not going to convince either oneself or anybody else. Then you're just sort of stuck with your idea. So Rinpoche says, if their position is logically established, their supporters will be filled with irreversible enthusiasm, and the tongues of dissenters will be cut short. So you might live in a place where everybody thinks McDonald's hamburgers is just the greatest thing that you could eat all the time. And then you might actually know, no, that's why people have rashes, they have, bad health. And if you could actually show, proving either with your own arguments or you could say research or whatever, and then people say, oh yeah, that's true actually. Yes, my kids, they are rather obese and I'm rather obese, so I'm very unhealthy and out of breath and miserable. And you might actually be right. That's where you could say, you can't just tell them, don't eat McDonald's, but you can, and apologies to the McDonald company that they're being brought in here, but I think it's a valid point. Then you could actually argue with people that there's actually a good reason to not just eat that every day. So that's where actually you could sort of eliminate the sort of you could say flawed science. Oh, but they have a little bit of salad in their burgers, whatever, That's where you can actually make that point, and then actually, there's a culture of beginning to eat healthy food, and that's where you could say one's own benefit is achieved, the benefit of others is achieved. There is here, as it says, the supporters will be filled with irreversible and enthusiasm, and the tongues of the dissenters, the people sitting there trying to sell their product, will be cut short. By contrast, when a path is not established by reason, then no matter how much it is decorated by all matter of assertions, a host of doubt will proliferate like water welling up from a spring. And that's where you can see in the modern culture, as much as we have extraordinary institutions that have been proclaimed the sort of upholders of truth in the past, either it's religions or you could say what has been proved flawed science and so on, that might have been very popular and very respected. Once one begins to investigate, then they actually, when they can't come up with proper explanations, then there is this host of doubts that proliferate like water welling up from a spring. And that's why for us to engage in the path, there has to be this complete certainty. So then dependent arising with regard to the ground nature. So I think here we're going to have three sections, which are then the ground nature, the arising of samsara, and the arising of nirvana. So these three, how the dependent arising exists. So that's where then in the root text, Jigme Lingpa says, everything that might appear, all things, both samsara and the state beyond all, and the state beyond all sorrow, come from nowhere, nowhere they go or stay, arising in dependence based upon their fundamental nature. Sorry, I didn't read that properly. And by the way, the state beyond all sorrow means nirvana. So let me just read it again. Everything that might appear, all things, both samsara and the state beyond all sorrow, come from nowhere. Nowhere do they go or stay, arising in dependence, based on their fundamental nature. So it doesn't matter what we look at, all phenomena, they exist in terms of dependent arising. And we can't find a single phenomenon that stands independently. So, but this is something we can investigate. We can say, is there anything in me that exists independently? I'm, first of all, an aggregation of a mind and a body. Is there anything around us in the world that we can find? And that's where we're intending here at this point, actually to investigate critically. Kangyur Rinpoche says, all phenomena, all false and deceptive appearances, the fluctuating compoundedness of life, samsara with its karma and defilements, meaning kleshas, and indeed the liberation from suffering that we call nirvana, are names superimposed on the ultimate nature. What we mean with this is that the original ground is pure. It is free from any assertion as being this or that on any kind of, you could say, our elaborations on the ground itself. We can see there's awareness, there's consciousness that we can ascertain, there's perceptions. But beyond that, we then elaborate solidity onto what, in fact, is merely just what we can ascertain as being an awareness and perceptions. And that's where we then can have false and deceptive appearances. And by the way, I was actually very pleased last time. Actually, kudos to Alexandra. She asked me, ego, is that a mistaken or unmistaken relative truth? And that's an important point. It's a mistaken relative truth. It has no reality. Now, when we talk about the rope that is misperceived as a snake, there we are walking on the path and we see a rope and we think it's a snake. The snake is a mistaken relative truth. The rope is an unmistaken relative truth. So we can ascertain that, yes, you have relative truth in terms of appearances that operate on the basis of causes and conditions, but you also have phenomena that are pure hallucination. And that is then like the snake that's imputed on the rope. And that is what the ego is. And that is where we then talk about false appearances and deceptive appearances. So that's where we need to be clear that you could say appearance in itself is not a problem. It's the way that we misinterpret. So that's where we can operate with a relative truth that is unmistaken and understand, like apples come from apple seeds and so forth. Aggressive actions create a sense of the other, you could say, aggressing on us and so forth. Kindness generates a gentle experience and so on. So that's where we talk about false and deceptive appearances that need to be understood in terms of how we are misperceiving our reality. And in general, we can also see on a more immediate level how everything is compounded, fluctuating. Life is happening. And all of this takes place on the ground where there's a fundamental misunderstanding. And that's where, on the basis of that, we then have the sense of ego. And ego then has its particular destructive emotional patterns, the kleshas. And when these become, you could say, ingested and integrated, and we live by that and project by our kleshas, then we create the worlds of samsara, the life worlds of samsara, the 6 realms of samsara. And that is then karma, the pattern that we continually are, you could say, experiencing. And so that's on one hand the condition of samsara that originates on the basis of dependent arising, and also then the liberation that also we can talk about as being free from confusion. But all of these are just names that are superimposed on our basic, you could say, experience of our ultimate nature. And here it then says, as to their origin, they arise from nowhere. They appear, but they have no reality. They have never actually come into existence. Just like a person in a dream has never actually come into existence. They appear, but they have no reality. As to their cessation, they go nowhere. As again, someone we met in a dream, we wake up, they had actually never been there, and they haven't gone anywhere. We might in the dream experience them as such, and that's a perception, but it has no actual reality. So just like when we wake up, we understand that the nature of what we have perceived arise from nowhere and also go nowhere. And so we talk about how things don't have origin, they don't have a place they go to, and also nowhere that they dwell. So that's why we say, like Kangyur Rinpoche says, as to their origin, they arise from nowhere. As to their sensation, they go nowhere. And in the meantime, they have no place of abiding. From the outset, phenomena dwell in the same essential equality of the 3 times. They arise in interdependence, and interdependence that is rendered possible by their ultimate nature. So that's why we talk about these phenomena that appear as taking place in space as a reality, but also in terms of how they exist in terms of time, where we very often think there's something that comes into existence, is there for a while, and then goes. There's the apple seed that then becomes the sprout, becomes the apple tree, and then withers, wilts, and collapses. And that's where you think, oh, over that duration of past, present, and future, all of this is a reality. But actually, no. If we investigate, we cannot find a past. Nobody has ever seen the past. Nobody has ever seen the present. It's something that is gone. There's nothing that we can hold on to. We can never, ever objectify the present. The future, nobody has seen. So that's where we can say we experience relatively the 3 times. But in fact, we cannot find anything real about these mere labels. They're very helpful. And none of us want to be late, or we don't like when others are late. So we're very much about time, and we better not be late for whatever plane or train we're catching, and so on. But the fact is, nobody has ever experienced neither the past, present, or future. We can say we experience the present, but even that doesn't have any reality. If it did, then it would be mixed up with the past and the future. So the more we investigate these topics of both space and time, the less we find. Other than we just see, yes, there's definitely perceptions, and that's what we're labeling the dependent arising. So as it says here, as is written in the Pitta Putra Samagama Sutra, phenomena are equal in the equality of the 3 times. Let's see what translators say. They do not originate, they do not dwell, they do not cease. So, okay, take one more. 143. Things seem to arise and then to cease, and yet they're empty in the very instant of appearing. To rest in no conceptual extreme is set forth as the middle way itself. So this is the message that the Buddha is trying to give to us, We believe we're sitting in a movie hall and we believe what we're seeing is true. And the Buddha taps us on the shoulder gently and whispers, you know, it's just a movie. We think that it's really happening and we're completely caught by the plot. That is what happens to us in the condition of samsara. So the point, the middle way is teaching us is simply just that phenomena actually have never actually come into existence. And you very often hear this in the Mahayana Sutras and also Pith instructions, where we have this very mystical expression that say unborn phenomena. And yes, they appear to come into existence, but actually that's just an appearance that is taking place. And we're then attributing this in terms of the 3 times, in terms of something that is coming into existence. And yes, we're not denying the appearance, but the solidity of it is where we need to understand phenomena appear, but they never ever assume a solid identity. So Kangyur Rinpoche says this could be expressed in another way by saying that all phenomena seem to arise from origins and end in extinction. But in the very moment of their manifestation, they are without inherent existence. These appearances, which are empty by nature, arise unobstructedly. They are untouched by the ontological extremes of existence, non-existence, and so forth. So we're, like it says in the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, meaning the first skanda, all the appearances. Emptiness is form, meaning emptiness is no other than empty. What is it again? Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. We're not going to find emptiness anywhere else. We're just trying to say, hey, these appearances, they don't have any reality. But that reality is not a nothing. There's continually unobstructed the nature of all the things that arise and abide in terms of cause and effect. So that's where we say they are empty, but they arise unobstructedly. They do not fall into the categories, the little boxes that we try to make about things as being there or not being there, existence, non-existence. So this is nobody is assuming that we just get this right away, but this is part of our process in terms of trying to understand what is the teaching saying. So this falls under, this is where we do our homework, and this is where we as practitioners, we reflect over this fact, and we take this into every aspect of our experience. This point that is being made here, that phenomena are untouched by the ontological extremes of existence, non-existence, and so forth. Kangyur Rinpoche says, if through wisdom one gains a profound conviction that this is so, one will realize that all that appears within the sphere of the common consensus is without inherent existence. It is a mere imputation of the mind and is based on emptiness. So in the common consensus, we all agree. Right now, we're sitting here having a Zoom meeting, and we are all, probably sitting in, a context where we're sitting with our bottom down and our head up, and it all sort of appears in a familiar way that we all exist within. And that's the common consensus. But again, try and notice how we all are seeing things differently from our own private perspective. It's relative truth. So that's where there is no, you could say, ultimate, unchanging reality about these perceptions we're having. Kangyur Rinpoche says, this is the teaching of the Madhyamika path, in which there is no place for extreme ontological assertions. So that is what the Buddha, Nagarjuna, and so on are telling us. And everything we do on the Buddhist path, whether it's shamatha vipassana, whether it's cultivating bodhicitta, whether we're tantrikas practicing the creation and completion stage or practicing the great perfection, all of it comes back to having a vision, understanding of what is being said here, and integrating that. And that is what is setting us free. And that is what enables us to cut through confusion. And it's from there we talk about awakening, then manifesting with all its qualities, such as strength, compassion, and wisdom. So this is an important point. All right. we'll leave it at that. And you're very welcome to, if there's any questions, I'll see if there is. Let's see here. That was so bad that I forgot to record the first section. Anyway, I'll make it up and re-record somehow. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, okay, let me just, by the way, let me just end the share. And hey, feel free to unmute if you have any questions, complaints. I don't want to hear more of this. I've had enough. Don't touch my belief in things as being solid. You know, Tsongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, many years ago, we published this article called Life is Cinema, and where he just says, you know, it's like we're caught in the plot, and the Buddha is just sitting there as we're sitting in the cinema, just telling you, hey, it's just a movie. So it's really just intended for us to, you know, the Buddha has sympathy for us and just wants us to take it easy, and we're much better than we think. In a skillful way. All right. Well, look, it's very nice to see everyone here, including the goddess.
Jakob.
Yes.
So when we talk about, because the first part of the question was the path then is about working with appearances in a skillful way. So that's what it means. So yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the path. In fact, you say that there's the nature of our confusion is really just in regard to the appearances.
Yeah, it's all we have.
Yes. And that's also why we see in different cultures, in different contexts, and for different people, the way that we handle and relate to our appearances is very different. And that's also why we can see there's so many different paths, all in relation to the various appearances. Yeah.
How are you going yourself, Jakob?
I'm all right. I'm coming down your way soon. I think I'll be in Australia in about a little over a week.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
must make you feel happy.
I am. I'm very excited. Coming down by.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, safe travels.
Thank you. See you soon. All right.
Thanks for all the teachings online via Zoom. I appreciate it.
I hope it's useful. Hope it's not giving anybody headaches or earaches. Okay.
That's great.
We'll conclude. Let me just see. There's something in the chat here. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Let me just let's just see here. Yeah. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we're born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jakob.